We move on to our next story. A special counsel appointed by the NFL has begun his independent investigation of allegations of bullying in the Miami Dolphins locker room. The investigation into the actions of guard Richie Incognito towards Jonathan Martin opens as new reports claim Dolphin coaches asked Incognito to, quote, toughen up Martin after he missed voluntary workouts last spring. Bryan Gilmore is a former Miami Dolphin, and he joins us on the phone to talk about the locker room culture. Bryan, thank you so much for taking some time with us. I do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Of course, because of this story, as it has grown from day to day, there's a lot of conversation about the culture of the locker room. You were in the Dolphin locker room. Explain what that culture is.
To me, it was a very family-oriented locker room. There was a lot of guys there who took their craft very seriously, and there was no bullying while I was there. It was strictly business, and it was a great environment to be in.
Well, let me ask you this then, in light of what you just said, when you heard the story, when it first broke, what was your initial reaction?
My initial reaction was rage and anger. But, you know, as I continue to hear all the different sides of the story, I'm not going to say I agree with every point of view, but I definitely understand the various points of view, and I can see stuff happening.
We've begun to hear more and more about this relationship between Richie Incognito and Jonathan Martin, that they were friends, they hung out together. There have been some of the players that said that Incognito looked out for Martin. He was like a big brother. So can you just talk about, in general, the relationship between veterans in the league and rookies?
It's a dicey relationship, to be honest with you. The offensive line is one of the best groups to be a part of, simply because each one of them plays different positions and they're not in danger of taking each other's spot. They really look out for each other and help each other. Other positions on the team, you can't say that, because it's kind of like, hey, as soon as you go down, I'm taking your job, and they'll get rid of you. So it's not a I'm not going to say it's hostile, but it's definitely an adult environment where you have to have some thick skin and tough skin and be able to stand on your own 2 feet.
Mm-hmm. So in light of what you're telling us, so we've sort of heard conflicting reports, you know, that it was a big brother, little brother relationship. And then, of course, according to Jonathan Martin's allegations, that it was adversarial and very mean. So which one makes most sense to you, judging by the positions that they play?
I'm going to say I don't want to be viewed as a hypocrite or anything, but it's kind of both. It's going to be adversarial in the sense that, you know, we're getting ready to play a very physical game, and people take this game extremely seriously. A lot is riding on the line. But at the same time, away from the field, you do have that relationship. You know, some players decide to have relationships off the field, where they actually go out and have dinner or go do things together.
I'm just curious, Bryan, had this been you, and I haven't even asked you whether or not you feel like you have been bullied. Were you bullied while you were in the NFL? And had you been in the position of Jonathan Martin, how would you have handled this situation?
Well, I was raised different, for one. I was raised to confront my fears, or if anything that I didn't like, you need to speak up and let people know you don't like it. So that's the kind of school of thought I've always come from. And the NFL is kind of still like that. It's kind of like, hey, it's kind of like the old, one coach used to call it the old frontier, where the gunslinger comes to town and you have to basically put him in his place. So you can't, to me, you can't really equate the situation to bullying, because you're talking about a grown man. And you're talking about two grown men who need to come together and basically hash out their differences and let that be that. And that happens all the time in the NFL. This isn't something new. You know, people have disagreements all the time. But the problem comes with one side of, you know, just acts like nothing's wrong, and then one day the situation blows up as it has. And so I would encourage Jonathan to confront people when they do things that he don't agree with. You know, you need to let them know now. You know, it's not an issue that you just keep going along to get along because you think it's the norm, because it's not.
And what do you make of the reaction of the coaching staff as well as the owner and the team in general? Of course, the team first said that they hadn't heard of any bullying. On that very same day, they suspended Richie Incognito. And, of course, there have been statements along the way every day since then. What do you make of the team's reaction, particularly the managers?
Honestly, what's happening now is what you see as damage control. That's my particular point of view, because I think they understand the culture of grown men, and in the past in the NFL, you just fight. You know, if you don't like somebody, you just fight, and then all of a sudden y'all are friends because you respect each other. But you can't do that anymore when certain players decide to say, hey, I'm not going to have any kind of physical confrontation with you. I'm not even going to talk to you. I'm just going to leave and tell people that you were bullying me. And as I know, they can be held liable for punitive damages, and so can Richie Incognito. So everybody's trying to wash their hands and save their own behinds now. That's what I personally think is happening, because I just think people are scared of the legal aspect of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. So do you think Jonathan Martin can come back and be an effective member of this team at this point?
I personally don't. I don't think people ever look at him the same, simply because they're going to view him almost as a coward, like he ran from a situation instead of just coming to them. Because the football culture is it's tough, but it's a sensitive environment. You know, you bleed with these guys, you sweat with these guys, you quite honestly fight with them all the time. It is kind of like a brother relationship. And that brother relationship isn't one necessarily always of love. I mean, you fight, you argue, you hate each other, but the next day you love each other. You know, it's just kind of that kind of deal. Mm-hmm. And when you decide to take things away from the game itself, and you get other people involved in the situation that have no idea about the situation, and it's really damaging to not only that particular team, but to every locker room around the NFL right now.
Well, it certainly is a mess. I think no one disagrees with that. Bryan Gilmore, thank you so much for giving us your insight. We do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.